Oh, we've got ONF. Okay, that's a cool one.
Yeah, so we saw 0nF last time. Looks like they're long jumping all the way towards Fatal
Fatal, yeah.
Fields, one of my favorite landing locations. Has lots of chests available for the whole squad to loot. That hill that Evil has just gone past as well usually has up to 3 crate spawns for you. So that could be something that one of his teammates goes for. But lots of resources here. There's 2 quarries full of stone. There's plenty of trees. And I'm sure that we'll see that ONF do get to harvesting as well as collecting all the loot. Potentially, this could be a contested spot as well. With Lucky Landing and Salty Springs very close to this stress, you could expect that ONF may run into some early fights.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much a guarantee from Fatal of how centralized it is. You know, obviously nearly dead center on the map at the bottom portion means that anytime you have to cross over from one of the far edges, you basically are running through Fatal Fields if it's a southern zone. But it's not southern, it's northern, so they actually might get away with it up until the point where they hit Salty and Dusty. That's normally where you start seeing people track over. Keeping an eye on the kill tracker in the bottom left, RWL7 already ended up in a fight, and Pasha Lime, who we were following last week, actually got downed already, but I think I didn't see a kill come from it, so maybe not too bad for RWL7. I guess we'll end up seeing them a little bit later.
Yeah, no, for sure. And this this zone placement kind of really favors the way the plane went over from Snobby Shores up towards the very tip top of Anarchy Acres. It's a very northern zone for a very northern battle bus route. So any of the teams that did go for a long drop towards the south will have to make a massive rotation, which is going to cost them in their time of looting, as well as harvest resourcing as well. So it does make things slightly difficult, I suppose, for teams like ONF who did decide to go for such a long drop out of the way of the battle bus, meaning they will be on foot and also having to rotate from the middle of the map.
Yeah, and you can see ONF not rushing to it. I think that's one of the mistakes that a lot of people end up making when you're new to the game, is going, oh, okay, the storm's appeared, I've got to run for it, right? Whereas obviously at the high level, everybody's not used to, is used to how the game starts. You've got plenty of time. You can basically get to any storm from any location. It just depends on what you have to sacrifice. But from here, they shouldn't have to sacrifice any farming time, any kind of looting time either. So as we talked about, Fatal, pretty good spawn. I want to see where the teams start contesting it, like you mentioned earlier. Not for this game, but I wonder, maybe the second or third game, starting to see where teams like ONF are actually spawning in.
Yeah, and so as you can see, our WL7 getting involved, Prestige knocked someone out, but he got knocked out himself. That's going to be most of RWL7 just taken out. In fact, that's all of them eliminated there by Sage King. Sage King going ham. I don't know who LT is. I think it's limited is the tag. I'm sure I could check my Discord and have a quick look through the competitive EU server that has all the players listed in there, and I can kind of get an idea. But actually, some maths for you. Everyone loves math stress. It takes roughly 7 minutes to run across the whole of the map. And so with the first circle closing in about 3 minutes, it takes 3 minutes for that first circle to close the storm to reach the edges. That means that if you're on the very southern end and it goes north, you probably only have half the map to cover, which means that as soon as that storm is closing sign comes up, you actually pretty much have that entire time to run to the circle. So ONF, very wary, like you mentioned, they know exactly what's going on. In fact, it looks like they are getting involved in a fight. Prison is going to be the place of combat. Yeah,
some shots traded for now. Looks like ONF kind of getting not boxed in from the north side, but certainly this is a bit more of a surrounded fight than they would have liked. They seem to have caught a squad coming over from that prison area, but Evil's got a pretty good placement here as long as he just watches out to the east, as long as he doesn't get tagged too heavily as he peeks up.
Yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't actually placed a wall up to protect himself and kind of isolate the fight. There it is. So now he can kind of focus on these guys on the north of him. He's got lots of nades picked up, really just destroying that cover in this early game. It is very difficult for players to have a huge amount of resources. You can see that that's come up trumps as ONF will pick up that first kill onto Infliction.
Infliction-esque.
now.
Yeah, so it's now 4 versus 3 in this fight, but there go the shields of Evil from ONF. But look, the high ground advantage at this point is just too much. You can't actually build a coherent barricade when there's 4 members of the enemy team taking you down. But trying for a sneak attack through the backside of this one, is this a bit of a, you know, a risky play, if not ballsy, trying to just get underneath them and try and get anything? I think at this point it's a numbers game that is just going to give ONF the win in this first skirmish of the game.
Yeah, it certainly looks like that's going to happen. Evil already got 2 kills of his own, looking very confident this fight. He's going to try and push towards his teammate, try and find this last person who's kind of flanking around. Assumes he's in this structure here. He is just underneath there. Oh no, it's loot that he's looking for, I see. My bad. A little bit difficult.
He was looking for loot, saw the purple glow of the crossbow and was like, it's a crossbow. All right. Ends up passing it over. Doesn't need his crossbow challenge for the week. Clearly got that earlier on.
So it's worth noting, Stress, that fight, whilst successful for ONF as a whole, has cost them a lot of time. They've got a minute now to rotate up towards that circle there. They are going to get caught in the storm here, which means they're going to be losing their HP. They've already lost a little bit HP from the fight as well. So while successful for ONF, you can kind of see as Evil glances back towards the storm, they've realized what it has cost them. We'll have to see exactly what that means for them as they rotate towards the northern side of the map.
Yeah, and those people may be less familiar with Fortnite, obviously because even though you get more time for the initial storms, it actually moves at a faster rate. So you can think you're okay with like a minute to go and it will outrun you. Even when sprinting, you cannot outrun the storm if you're in it that far on the first one. So Evil, they're going to have to just heal up, get into the zone. They're not worried to the point where you have to run and do nothing else. Possible that one of the other teammates picked up a jump pad as well, but certainly not exactly a comfortable start to this game, you know, when it comes to the first storm placement for them anymore.
Yeah, and so what they're doing right now is instead of rushing straight in towards the new zone, as you might be tempted to do, they're looting all the various loot spawns around them, looking for bandages, looking for med kits, making sure that they enter the zone with at least some healing. At some point, someone will make the call and say, all right, guys, we just need to go. But as you can see, Evil spotted some bandages down here, so he's going to be picking them up, sacrificing a weapon slot for that, making sure that the team can get all healed up when they do eventually get into the circle.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. When you've got 4 members of the squad still alive, as long as one of you gets into the circle and can put barricades up, that's where you'll see people start to cycle their health out. When you drop very low, when you end up like 10 health, it's actually more beneficial to get knocked out in the storm, crawl back in, and have your teammates res you, as long as you're not under attack. That's something that you'll commonly see teams do, especially on the first storm or two. Later on, it's way too risky. Trying to get that res time later on is a lot harder.
Yeah, so ONF, Evil here, didn't quite make it close enough. He is going to have to use a couple of bandages here, so slight waste, unfortunately. Like you mentioned, you know, when you do get knocked out, then res, you go back up to 30 HP. So if you're ever under that, makes sense to get knocked out by the walls of the zone, by the storm here. Also, you don't lose any shielding when you get knocked out via the storm, nor do you lose any shielding if you get knocked out via a fall either. Looks like they're not going to go for this here. Evil is going to just heal himself back up. Potentially it was too risky. They don't necessarily have enough time. Hopefully the rest of the team have the healing necessary to get back up towards 75, because it's very dangerous at this point trying to rotate to the next circle that we will be able to check out in a second. Looks like it is even more northbound.
Oh, and this is a bad one for...
Park.
Yeah, coming from the southeast, this is a bad one as well, because now you've got to go all the way around Loot Lake. You don't even get the luxury of being able to just kind of hover on the riverbank for a while and use some of the high ground that surrounds it. Now you've basically got to run into either Tilted and risk a team being stuck around there. Maybe he's come up from Shifty, or you've got to try and go out into the open ground on the east side of Loot Lake, which is Sniper's Paradise, basically.
Yeah, no, for sure. This is, it's dangerous. We'll see that Evil does make a stop by the Dusty Depot to see if you can't find, you know, some resources, potentially bandages, whatever they may be. You'd expect at this point that it has been looted, and the stairs in between the warehouses kind of signal that as well. So I don't think Evil will commit too much time towards the warehouse. Is just kind of jumping as he looks in to see if there's any bandages lying about, stuff that most people will leave behind. But currently, ONF they really need desperately.
Yeah, desperately. One man's trash is another man's treasure at this point for bandages. One of those desperation moments. But there's a lot of fortification up ahead. Some people running down in the valley as well. I haven't noticed evil, at least. Maybe the rest of ONF have got scoped weapons, but it looked quite dry on the sniper or at least hunting rifle front for evil. So not really wanting to take an engagement from this range, especially on the health they're in, because even an AR, if it tags you, if evil gets hit in the head, that's basically him knocked right in the middle of the open ground.
Yeah, no, certainly is something that they don't necessarily want to be doing. But that is actually very, very standard when it comes to competitive battle royale. When you play solos or squads with your mates, you may have all the loot, purple scars, legendary scars, as well as some scoped weapons for all. But when you play competitive, you take things so much more slower and carefully that you don't actually loot anywhere near as much as you would in a normal game. And it looks like ONF here is in a bit of trouble, being spotted from that northeast structure over towards Loot Lake, and now he's just desperately trying to build his way up towards this lake house and hopefully try and find some loot for himself as well.
Yeah, this is the gamble, right? Because you assume Loot Lake is not going to be looted. No team is really going to prioritize going there early on. But the risk is jumping across the lake, because you don't want to waste the wood or building materials to actually get over the lake on foot. So jumping through leaves you a little bit vulnerable, but they're going to be able to get up into the house, see what they can get. You can see, look, there's some of the healing and the shielding they were looking for. Couple more little pickups like that and they should be okay to continue.
And Evil making use of those smoke grenades, something that we don't really see very often in Fortnite. In fact, from what I heard, never mind, they've been pushed.
Yeah, they've been pushed by another team. Kimmer comes up behind them and at this point knocked out really early on. That's the danger we were talking about not having the healing for Evil. Everything's a little bit quieter now. You can hear footsteps on the stairs, but it sounded like only one or two pairs, so maybe that's ONF stabilizing.
Fortunately, we are kind of restricted to seeing what Evil can see, and right now, all Evil can see is the wooden staircase in front of him, but he's hoping desperately that his team is cleaning up the act. He's crawling up. Seems like that might be a res. Nope, it's a bad guy, and that will be him taken on out. Now spectating the Cyborg, who's trying to make his way towards the zone here, and we'll have to see. They're getting pushed. Looks like there's a lot of building around, so potentially a mid-fight here, Stress.
Yep, manages to take out the ramp piece. Cyborg, I know normally teams with Zacubus and too good for these custom games. We'll see whether the rest of the squad is the same as usual. But look, they're taking fire from the high ground now, trying to put up a little bit of shielding as they head through factory. Desperately trying to get around, and this is the problem with that Loot Lake circle. The zone meant that a lot of teams had to kind of cram into this factory area and try and cross the lake. This time the zone is up through Pleasant Park. There's a lot of high ground up to the north. We'll see which team can actually end up taking that, but impulse grenades to try and get them a little bit faster towards the zone.
Do love me some impulse grenades. They're so fun, and they're actually very useful, if you're trying to escape, you're trying to close distance, or you just want to go for a flashy ninja style play. So many different uses there, and one of the better additions to Fortnite, I have to say. As I start to pick them up more often, I'm realizing the strength. It looks like they're not out of the woods here yet, still being shot at from behind, as well as noticing this huge structure in front of them that's been constructed out of metal. It's going to be very difficult for Cyborg and presumably too good Succubus, those guys, to get out of this one, but they can build a structure of their own, fortify their positions. A jump pad has been brought into play. I wonder who that is, enemy or foe.
Yeah, we'll end up seeing two have gone over. UKN we just saw have been knocked down once or twice, but this is the open space on the east side of the lake that we were talking about. Now the high ground from the top side starts becoming very, very effective, because it's not normal that you get quite so fortified up on there with that metal setup, but one of the squads has managed to do it, and at this point it sounds like they've got snipers. If they at least have some explosives, it's going to be difficult to actually attack this, especially with crossfire from multiple teams, because you don't want to just let other teams run up there at the same time.
People crossing out in the open. We got 30 seconds until we see where this circle will shift. Those high top mountains that currently we see Cyborgs posted on, but also the ones further north that are even taller may come out of play, and that's when teams will be forced to rotate. Still 30 people alive in this circle. People don't die anywhere nearly as quickly in these skill games. You can see people desperately trying to get out of the circle. Surprise
Walled
Cyborg's
himself
not
in
taking any
twice.
shots of his scope there. Yeah,
Yeah,
like this seems like 3 pot shots, but perhaps ammo is
Oh no,
scarce.
that's so greedy. Oh, Cyborg missed the first 2 shots on that. Did take some shields down after it, but that was so greedy to go for that drop. Oh, looks like, was that Kimmer ends up getting knocked down by UKN?
Yeah, and you can see that other people are falling as well. Cyborg finishes off Real Duran there. Now it's going to be only 26 remaining. Circle has shifted to our west as well, and that's going to be those hilltops taken off. Pleasant Park going to be the position of fight there for the entirety, pretty much, of that circle. So a lot of pre-made structures, much more difficult to knock down, so you can fortify your bases on top of them. We'll have to see how quickly these teams do decide to rotate into the new circle.
Yeah, and you can imagine a launch pad off the top for whichever team is to the north would get them there pretty quickly, but then you basically are sitting ducks flying right over the top of Cyborg and his team. And I think at this point, Cyborg looks like they're staying put for a while, going to try and catch some of the early rotators because they know they're blocked from the north side. They're not likely to get picked off, so try and pick somebody off on their way over, and maybe you can end up getting a squad at least to use some of their healing before these late stages of the game.
Yeah, no, 40 seconds until the circle will close. Considering that the circle is quite small, the time it takes for that to close has been significantly increased to about 1.5 minutes at this point. But also, that means that because it is so small, these players will have plenty of time to actually just walk along the edge of the circle. They're not going to be consumed or surprised, really. Cyborg and the rest of the team are rotating, but taking so many shots from Pleasant Park at this point here. So really trying to use the terrain that's already here to their advantage, these valleys that they can kind of use as cover before they are forced to, in fact, go towards Pleasant Park.
Cyborg even stopping to take a couple of trees down. Obviously, we don't quite get the luxury of seeing what their material status is, but one of the most impactful parts of the late game that we're going to find is whichever team can, use the building mechanics to their advantage the best. Scoundrel, I believe, will be joining us a little later on in the stream, so it's just you and me for now, Dowsey. But Cyborg's not on his own. He's been tagged from just that modern building in Pleasant. This is the danger here because he's only got single little pieces of wall to block him, and there's so much open space towards his right side that anybody could kind of, one stray AR shot is gonna knock him down, and at this point very difficult to revive him from basically the open ground.
Yeah, Pleasant Park is just open fields, basically, and so very difficult to play around, and you can see a lot of teams have already established place inside of it, but Cyborg and the squad do make it in. UKN still hard going for the rest of the squad here. UKN, one of the teams that last week we saw were consistently getting top 1, top 2 placements. Looks like Cyborg's going to try and gatekeep a little bit. The zone has closed, and unfortunately they are outside of it. They will have to make their way slightly to the west just by fractions. So will a lot of people, and this is where that 90 number probably going to be reduced very desperately down towards 8.
Yeah, incredibly quickly at this point. And we've also got to the stage where me bringing up the map is actually less useful than using the mini-map that is on the screen, so I'll just keep us on board with Cyborg for now. At this point, they're holed up in just the house on the outside, so no healing to be had. Cyborg's still only 26 health. I believe you were walking us through some of the way that the geography in the houses in Pleasant is going to affect this last fight, so we'll see it come to fruition a little bit later. Clock Tower seems to have been built up by one of the teams that established their kind of place in Pleasant Park early on. Only 35 seconds to go, though, which means that Storm's going to start moving, but as you mentioned, it's a lot slower now. It's less damning to be right on the edge of the zone for now.
Yeah, for sure. Unfortunately, though, if you are on the edge of the circle, then everyone is looking towards you. Anyone who's already inside the circle, they're going to be watching outwards to try and prevent anyone rotating in towards them. Looks like Cyborg and the team here will be able to kind of stay slightly in this house. They're currently trading some resources. They're going to be fortifying. Rockets incoming stress as well.
Yeah,
doesn't look like they're hitting the house here, but they are being careful to make sure that they all
open a window.
Yeah.
This is not
That's
too
4
bad.
people rotating.
Yeah, if there's another team that can put some fire down, perhaps from the other side, they might have been able to get some knockdowns, but that was a bit of a risky window to open up onto the world. But now peeking up, Cyborg has to be incredibly careful. Any gun will basically take him out from this point if anybody hits it.
Yeah, no, 26 HP. It's only going to be SMGs, really, that aren't going to be tagging you down. Any rifle, AR, it's going to knock you at this stage. Cyborg knows this, of course, so he's positioning himself in such a way that if he does get knocked, then he can fall back and the team hopefully get a res off. But getting knocked at this stage into the game is very dangerous, as it will pretty much equal anyone having the chance to rush on in. Looks like the team are going to be rushing out here. Stress, they do have to move slightly towards the south, but there are teams to their west that they want to try and eliminate as quickly as possible. Numbers dropping desperately as everyone's getting knocked out. UKN doing a lot of work, though.
Yeah, a lot of work being done by UKN. Oh, Cyborg does not get the trade there against Paradox up on the top. And you can see Paradox even hesitating for a moment before he gets that shotgun off. We're now riding on with Zacubus, who is one of the teammates of Cyborg. Cyborg had actually left Zacubus and his teammate that he's rezzing now to go and take that fight. Ends up getting the bad side of it. But as you said, we've gone from 19 down to 11 very quickly over this firefight. And look, it's not over yet. Here comes the push. One knockdown, but Zacubus taken out from the south side of Pleasant Park. That is another elimination down. And now we're with UKN once again.
Yeah, UKN once more in the top 5, top 3, as they so often find themselves. Looks like they've got a uniform going as well, that Black Ops skin. Really just making them look even more terrifying to their foes here. Only 6 remain, and I've seen 3 from UKN, so it's potentially 4th alive as well. But I think it might just be the 3 of these guys here cuddled up trying to heal, which means they could be up against 1 squad, or they could be up against 2 potentially. 3, technically, if there are 3 strugglers out there, but it's more likely that it's 2 or 1 squads that they're facing here, and they've got the circle as well, so they're not doing much. They just need to fortify their position, make sure that their enemies cannot rotate towards them or get into their own structure as the circle comes in, and it is going to be a split push from the north.
Yeah, from the north, but it's kind of a head-on attack at this point. They don't have the high ground, but they managed to prevent UKN from actually making a tower structure, which is kind of important here. And now look at their fortifications are being pushed in by the storm again and again. UKN have superior positioning at this point. There was 1 knock at least. That's a fall down. Manages to catch himself. UKN closing in with the shotguns. And Sif is going to pick up the game for UKN. At that point, the head-on attack, very difficult for the rest of the opposing squad to pick up. And UKN, they've done it again, Dowsey. They're in the end of it. They actually end up picking up the first game of the day.
Yeah, no, UKN clearly showing that in these EU skill custom games that we have on a Wednesday afternoon, evening here, Stress. They're here to play. They're here to win. They are so consistent in their placings. Last week it was a first, a second, a first type deal for UKN. Here we can see that they've picked up the first game of this week as well. So really a team that I'm sure that most of the European competitive players are looking towards and really respecting as one of the best, as they're so consistent.
Yeah, really consistent and quite fun to watch as well. They see Orange pulling off the 2v1 last week. Now we've got their uniform coming in. We only got a little bit of a glimpse at the end of it, but certainly a team we're going to keep our eyes on. So we've got about 5 minutes before the next game setup. I'm going to head to a little bit of a break, make sure that I can get into the next game good and make sure that the stream's okay as well. But we'll be back in a couple of minutes for some more EU skill customs.